Imagine a world untouched by civilization, no cities, no tools of comfort, no trace of language or law. The air was raw, heavy with the scent of rain-soaked earth and danger. The land stretched endlessly under a fiery sun, where predators ruled and survival was not a choice but an instinct. In this brutal yet breathtaking wilderness, the earliest humans began their silent battle for existence. Every sunrise brought a new question: how to eat, how to shelter, how to live another day. Yet, from this struggle, something extraordinary was born, the first spark of human intelligence, the courage to adapt, and the will to shape the story of life itself. This is the forgotten dawn of humanity. Life 4.7 million years ago. The world 4.7 million years ago was both a paradise and a prison. The earth was alive, not with the hum of machines, but with the pulse of untamed creation. Thunder rolled across distant mountains, rivers carved through unbroken forests, and the air carried the scent of rain mixed with fear. The land was beautiful yet merciless. Droughts turned the soil to dust, storms tore through fragile shelters, and predators watched with unblinking eyes. This was the cradle of humanity, harsh, wild, and sacred. In this unforgiving landscape lived two ancient souls, Ru and Sana. They were not yet what we would call human, but something between beast and becoming. Their minds flickered with the early light of awareness, and their hearts, though primitive, felt something eternal, a longing that reached beyond survival. Fate had scattered them across distant plains, each caught in the rhythm of a different tribe, each dreaming unknowingly of the other. Ru wandered through the heat-hazed savannas, his bare feet pressing into the cracked earth. Every sunrise meant a new search for food, every night a battle with the cold wind that sliced through bone and thought alike. He learned to listen, to the whispers of the trees, to the warnings carried by birds, to the silence before danger. Survival was not strength. It was attention. Sana, miles away, gathered roots by the river's edge, her reflection rippling in the water. She too listened not with her ears but with her soul. The river spoke in ancient tones, telling her of lives beyond this one, of faces that waited behind the veil of time. In her heart, there lived a quiet knowing that somewhere another soul beat in rhythm with hers. The world tested them endlessly. Floods swept away tribes, lightning ignited forests, hunger hollowed even the strongest. But within this endless trial, something invisible was forming, not just the evolution of body, but the evolution of connection. The pain of loss gave birth to memory, the ache of separation gave rise to love, and love, in its most primal form, became the will to endure. One night, beneath a sky heavy with stars, Ru dreamed of a river and a face shimmering upon its surface. The next dawn, something guided his steps, an instinct older than language, deeper than logic. Days turned into weeks as he followed the unseen pull across valleys and storms. And then, by the water's edge, he saw her, the same reflection that had haunted his sleep. They did not speak, for words were still unborn. Yet, in the silence between them, eternity moved. Their reunion was not the beginning of a story, but the continuation of one written in the dust of stars and the blood of earth. And so, in a world of chaos and creation, two ancient souls remembered what even the first humans once knew, that survival was not just of the body, but of love, memory, and the invisible threads that tie one life to another across the endless span of time. As the earth shifted and the seasons turned with wild unpredictability, Ru and Sana's reunion marked not just the meeting of two souls, it marked the awakening of something greater within humanity itself. The storms that once brought terror now became teachers. The roaring beasts that stalked the plains became mirrors of their own untamed power. Through struggle, they began to remember that survival was not merely about resistance, but about harmony with the rhythm of life itself. Ru, whose eyes once only saw safety, began to see patterns in the chaos. He noticed how the birds changed their flight before the rain came, how the wind shifted before predators approached. This was the quiet birth of intelligence, not in words, but in awareness. He began to shape stones, not by accident, but by intention. Every strike against a rock was a dialogue with the universe, an act of creation echoing the divine. Sana too felt a change within her. Her dreams grew more vivid, filled with symbols she could not name, spirals of light, ancient fires, faces that flickered between lifetimes. She began to sense that their connection was not bound to this one fragile existence. When she looked at Ru, she felt she had known him in 1,000 dawns before this one, and would know him in 1,000 more. It was as if their souls were two flames that had danced through ages, learning, separating, and returning again, each time brighter, wiser, closer to remembering their true origin. Together, they began to read the language of nature, the sacred script written in the patterns of the stars and the flow of rivers. When danger approached, it was Sana who felt it first, an ache in her bones, a whisper in her breath. Ru would watch her eyes, trust her silence, and act before the danger struck. Instinct was evolving into intuition, a bridge between the physical and the spiritual. But fate is rarely kind to those who awaken too soon. One night, the valley burned. Fire raged through the forest, consuming everything it touched. The tribe scattered, screams blending with the crackle of dying trees. In the chaos, Ru was pulled away, his calls lost the roar of the wind. Sana, trapped by the river's edge, could only watch the glow fade into the distance, and with it, the one who carried half her soul. Yet deep within her, a calm truth emerged. This separation was not an ending. It was another lesson in the eternal dance. For every loss teaches remembrance, and every separation, reunion. She closed her eyes and whispered to the night, not with words, but with her heart, a promise that would echo through time. I will find you again. And so, as the earth turned and eons passed, that vow became part of humanity's evolution, the instinct to love, to remember, to search for what was once lost. Intelligence was born not from fear, but from longing, the longing to return home, to the one soul that makes all lifetimes worth surviving. The world after the fire was quieter, yet more dangerous. Nature had reset itself, painting the earth in ash and rebirth. Ru wandered beneath blood-red skies, his body scarred but his spirit unbroken. Every rustle in the grass, every distant growl in the night reminded him that life was never promised. It had to be earned, breath by breath. In this wilderness of uncertainty, fear became his constant companion and courage his only weapon. But courage, he learned, was not the absence of fear. It was the act of walking through it, guided by something invisible, perhaps the faint memory of Sana's voice carried by the wind, or the warmth that still lived in his heart, despite the cold nights. When predators circled, great cats with eyes like fire, or packs of wild beasts hunting by scent, Ru's pulse would quicken, yet he stood his ground. For in his mind, he carried not just his own survival, but the promise of their shared destiny. He began to sense that life itself was testing him, shaping his soul to remember what it means to truly live. Across the plains, Sana too has survived. The tribe that found her was smaller, more fragile. She became their silent guide, leading them through the wilderness not by reason, but by intuition. She felt danger before it came, the breath of a lion before it pounced, the tremor of the earth before the storm. The others saw her as something more than human, a bridge between the seen and unseen. Yet within her, the ache of separation burned quietly. In dreams, she saw Ru's eyes, fierce, searching, alive. Every challenge, every hunt, every sleepless night became part of her spiritual preparation to find him again. Predators ruled the land, but they were not merely creatures of terror. They were the embodiment of nature's law, that only through confrontation with death does life evolve. One night, Sana faced this truth when a beast cornered her tribe. Instead of running, she stepped forward, heart steady, gaze unbroken. For a moment, time dissolved, and in the eyes of the creature, she saw not malice, but reflection. Fear turned to stillness, and stillness to understanding. The beast turned away. The tribe called it a miracle, but Sana knew it was something deeper, the moment when courage transcended survival and became spiritual awakening. Ru, too, faced his own trial. Surrounded by predators, weakened and alone, he no longer fought to live. He surrendered to existence itself. And in that surrender, he felt something move through him, a presence, a memory, a voice that whispered across lifetimes, "You are not alone." At that moment, something within both of them shifted. They were separated by distance, by fate, by time, yet connected by an invisible current of courage flowing through their souls. The predators had not come to destroy them, but to remind them that love, too, is a kind of bravery, the eternal courage to find each other again, no matter how many lives it takes. As the fires of survival dimmed into embers, a new kind of light began to glow within humanity, the light of creation. Ru, weathered by storms and solitude, began to understand that survival was not meant to be a desperate struggle against nature, but a sacred partnership with it. He watched how rivers curved, how branches bent, how stones cracked, and somewhere in that silent observation, knowledge was born. The earth began to speak in symbols, and for the first time he listened not with fear, but with wonder. One evening, as the sun sank beneath a horizon of gold, Ru sat beside a fallen tree. His hands, guided by instinct and something deeper, struck two stones together. Sparks leapt into the air like tiny souls seeking rebirth. When the dry grass caught flame, he did not recoil in terror as his ancestors might have. Instead, he smiled, not in triumph, but in reverence. Fire, once a force of destruction, was now a teacher. It was warmth in the cold, light in the void, and hope in the darkness. Humanity had taken its first step from instinct into intention. Across distant lands, Sana too began to shape her surroundings into meaning. Her tribe, weary from wandering, followed her to the mouth of a vast cave carved by time itself. The air within was cool, the walls marked with ancient mineral hues. Guided by a force she could not name, Sana began to trace symbols upon the stone, spirals, figures, and circles that echoed dreams she had carried from other lives. The markings told no story in words, yet they spoke of unity, memory, and eternal return. It was there, in the flicker of firelight, that she felt Ru's presence again, not as a man of flesh and bone, but as a vibration moving through her being. Her heart quickened. The wind whispered his name. She closed her eyes and saw him kneeling beside another fire far away, hands glowing in the same orange light. Two flames, born apart, yet burning in rhythm, one in the cave, one in the wilderness, connected through the invisible thread of remembrance. As days turned to seasons, both began to shape the world in their image. Ru built shelter from stone and wood, learning to weave branches against the rain. Sana gathered herbs that soothed pain, leaves that healed wounds, and shared them with her people. What had once been instinct had now become creation, intelligence guided by empathy, structure born from love. Humanity was not merely surviving anymore, it was becoming. Through their distant acts of creation, Ru and Sana were unknowingly building the same truth, that every tool crafted, every fire lit, and every shelter raised was a reflection of the soul's eternal desire to build connection, to protect, to nurture, to return home. Their inventions were not merely signs of progress. They were expressions of memory, fragments of an ancient love trying again and again to manifest itself in form. And though centuries would pass, and their names forgotten by time, the essence of their union would live on in every spark struck, every home built, and every human heart that remembers, even in darkness, how to make light. As time unfolded its ancient scroll, the fires Ru and Sana had kindled became more than warmth. They became symbols of awakening. The small shelters they built, the stones they shaped, the symbols they carved, all were whispers of something vast and unseen. Humanity was beginning to remember itself, not as a fragile creature lost in the wilderness, but as a fragment of the universe learning to dream. And at the heart of that dream pulsed the memory of two souls, eternally bound, eternally becoming. Generations passed like rivers through stone. The descendants of Ru and Sana walked the same lands, their hands guided by instincts older than blood. They gathered, they hunted, they told stories by the firelight, not knowing that those stories were echoes of a love that had once defied time. In every tribe that learned to cooperate, in every heart that dared to hope, the spirit of those two ancient beings lived quietly, shaping the invisible architecture of what would one day become civilization. Ru's legacy was strength, the courage to face the storm, to strike the first spark, to look at chaos and see potential. Sana's legacy was wisdom, the ability to listen to the silence between the winds, to read meaning in the movements of stars, to trust the unseen rhythm guiding all life. Together, their essence wove itself into the DNA of humankind, the balance between logic and intuition, the harmony of mind and heart, the sacred union of survival and soul. Yet the story of Ru and Sana did not end in those primitive days. Across ages and incarnations, they would return as wanderers, as seekers, as lovers who found and lost each other beneath different suns. Sometimes they met in the same lifetime. Sometimes they missed by centuries. But their souls, magnetized by remembrance, always found a way to circle back. For love, in its truest form, is not a moment, it is momentum. In one age, Ru was a builder of cities, shaping stone temples that reached toward the heavens. In another, Sana was a healer, tending to the forgotten, teaching compassion where cruelty had reigned. Though they never spoke of it, each carried an unshakable sense of déjà vu, a knowing that their purpose was shared. When they met again, their eyes recognized what time had tried to bury, that all evolution, of species, of spirit, of civilization, begins with the courage to love despite impermanence. And so, from the ashes of prehistory to the rise of human consciousness, their legacy endures. Every act of kindness, every invention that serves rather than destroys, every story told by firelight carries the resonance of their first meeting beside the river and their vow whispered into the night, "We will find each other again." It was through their endurance that the human spirit learned its greatest truth, that survival is not only the preservation of life, but the remembrance of love, that to sustain existence is to carry forward the sacred flame first lit by two souls who proved millions of years ago that, even in a world of chaos and death, the essence of humanity would always be born, not from fear but from connection.